Hey guys, tonight we're rolling through a story smokier than a college dorm room in 2009. The rise and ruin of spice, K2, synthetic weed, or whatever your cousin still calls legal high at Thanksgiving. This is the history of the one time people thought, what if we could get legally blitzed at a gas station and not die? And the universe immediately said, bet. And since this is our brand new channel, before you settle in, maybe take a second to hit like and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what you find here. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim those lights, crank on a fan, white noise, and plausible deniability, and settle into your soft, non-plastic bed, because tonight we're inhaling the bizarre saga of synthetic weed. Let's get curious for a second. Was it actually legal? Could you buy it next to breath mints and beef jerky? Did anyone involved ever read a science book? Did you or your college roommate spend an entire summer convinced you could hear colors? Would you survive a night in a world where the safe option was something labeled not for human consumption in Comic Sans? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the late 2000s. You're in a convenience store parking lot at 2:17 a.m., holding a foil packet covered in a dragon, and you're about to learn why your generation has trust issues. The year is 2005. You're wearing cargo shorts with pockets full of regrets, and you've just wandered into a head shop that smells like bubblegum incense and lost dreams. On the counter, neon foil packets promising herbal high. Nobody seems worried, not even the guy with 3 eyebrow piercings selling plant food. Let's set the scene. You, a sleep-deprived, slightly sunburned human with $20 in your sock, are standing between a wall of glow sticks and a display case of suspiciously sticky bongs. The music in here is some kind of trance remix of a ringtone, looping endlessly. Your friend is asking about rolling papers, but you're distracted by a shelf labeled legal weed, new formula. If you look around, the clientele is mostly teenagers, night shift workers, and one guy in a leather trench coat who claims he's just passing through. Sure, buddy. On the counter, the infamous packets gleam with cartoon dragons, lightning bolts, and fonts so bold even your grandma would get curious. The names are legendary: Space Galaxy, Blueberry Bliss, Supernova Spice. All, allegedly, for incense use only, for external use only, not for human consumption. But you know and I know, nobody ever bought herbal incense to freshen up their sock drawer. It's 2:17 a.m., and the gas station next door is bustling. You step out for some air and find a vending machine that sells K2 right next to Red Bull and scratch-offs. The clerk doesn't bat an eye. In fact, he gives you a little wink, as if to say, yeah, I know, but what am I gonna do? Ask questions? You start to realize that the early 2000s are a magical time. A lawless window where you can buy a mysterious substance next to nacho cheese and nobody seems to care. Regulations? Never heard of them. Let's talk about your motivation. Why are you here? Maybe you're between jobs. Maybe you've got a drug test coming up. Or maybe you're just curious because you heard someone at a party say, dude, it's basically the same as weed. You want to believe. You want to trust. But deep down, a little voice is asking, if it's legal, why is it so shiny? The smell is not quite herbal, not quite chemical, but definitely not what nature intended. You crack open a packet and pour it onto a rolling paper. The blend looks like lawn clippings after a bad drought. You spark up, take a cautious puff, and immediately regret your choices. The taste? Like burning old oregano mixed with anxiety and a hint of melted plastic. Your eyes water. Your brain feels like someone swapped out the wiring for a series of question marks. Around you, the early adopters are swapping stories. One guy claims he smoked a whole packet and only cried for 20 minutes. Another insists it's totally chill, but his left eyebrow hasn't stopped twitching since Tuesday. There's always one friend who insists on reading the ingredients aloud. Damiana Blue, Lotus Marshmallow Leaf, and a proprietary blend. You nod solemnly. It's the word proprietary that really builds trust. But this is the spirit of the era. Bold, mildly reckless, and fueled by Monster Energy and MTV reruns. You're a pioneer, testing the limits of human ingenuity and FDA oversight. The store owner rings you up without judgment, hands you a lighter, and says, "Stay safe, man." In the distance, a cop car drives by, oblivious to your groundbreaking research. You head home, packet in hand, a hero in your own mind. Maybe you'll be fine. Maybe you'll just end up watching infomercials for 3 hours, heart pounding, convinced you're being watched by your neighbor's cat. Either way, you'll have a story to tell. And in the early 2000s, that's what really mattered. Surviving the night, and maybe, just maybe, remembering how to laugh about it tomorrow. End scene. Welcome to the beginning of the synthetic weed saga. The only thing more questionable than the science is your decision-making. But don't worry, we're just getting started. You turn the packet over. Ingredients: Damiana, Blue Lotus, proprietary blend, and a pinch of absolute chaos. It's all legal, for now. You're thinking, how bad can a bag of leaves sold next to trucker hats be? Spoiler, very bad. Let's unpack this shiny packet of mystery. Spice, K2, Mr. Nice Guy. Call it what you want. But whatever you call it, the ingredients list reads like a failed botany student's fever dream. It's marketed as herbal incense for aromatherapy, which is technically true if your idea of aromatherapy is lighting, a bonfire in a fertilizer store, and hoping for the best. The fine print dances around the real secret. It isn't what's in the herbs, it's what's on them. Here's the not-so-secret secret. None of those innocent-sounding botanicals actually get you high. Damiana, Blue Lotus, and Marshmallow Leaf could barely spice up your tea, let alone your brain. The magic is all in the synthetic chemicals, stuff with names like JWH18 and HU210, invented by scientists who probably didn't picture you rolling it up behind a bowling alley. These lab-made cannabinoids are sprayed onto plant material, sometimes unevenly, always sketchily, and then bagged up for public consumption. It's sort of like trying to make nachos by gluing cheese slices to tortilla chips with a glue stick, then charging double because it's artisanal. Touch the mixture. It's strangely sticky, like it's been stored under a heat lamp at a roadside diner. Give it a sniff, and the aroma isn't herbal so much as chemical adjacent, like potpourri that's just given up. Every packet is a lucky dip. Some might contain the chemical equivalent of a gentle nudge. Others are about as subtle as a fire alarm in a silent retreat. Consistency is not in the business plan. Still, the legal loophole is intoxicating. It's right there, sitting on the shelf, not even pretending to be contraband. You imagine a future where this is just what people do. Stroll into a gas station, grab a Gatorade, a beef stick, and a bag of synthetic cannabinoids, and maybe check if they're running a 2-for-1 special on regret. There's something both rebellious and deeply suburban about the whole thing. You're a pioneer charting a course through unregulated territory, except your map is upside down and your compass is a magic 8-ball. You ask yourself, if it's legal, how dangerous can it really be? And this is the genius of spice. It weaponizes your optimism. This is the era where herbal means healthy, natural means safe, and proprietary blend means don't ask questions. You wouldn't eat a mystery casserole made by someone named Mr. High, but you'll smoke it because there's a picture of a wizard on the package. Pop culture isn't helping. Late-night hosts joke about legal weed, and online forums are full of reviews that swing wildly between life-changing enlightenment and screamed at my lamp for an hour, would not recommend. There's a kind of mythos forming around it, a blend of hope, bravado, and that timeless human desire to try something you probably shouldn't. Why? Because you can. Meanwhile, the scientists whose molecules you're inhaling are shaking their heads somewhere, muttering, "It wasn't meant for this." Synthetic cannabinoids were originally cooked up in labs to study brain chemistry, pain relief, or cancer, noble causes, not smoke this at a sleepover and see who passes out first. The real tragedy? Even they don't know exactly what happens when you light up a pinch. Your first hit is usually the last normal moment of your night. If you're lucky, you feel a little buzzed, a little light. Maybe you laugh at a joke that isn't funny. If you're unlucky, you'll spend the next 30 minutes contemplating your own mortality and wondering why your reflection looks so judgmental. So, what even is spice? It's not weed, it's not incense, and it's definitely not safe. It's a chemical wild card, dressed up in a shiny bag, daring you to ignore common sense for one more night. And you, like so many others, take the bet. Welcome to the great synthetic experiment, where the only thing guaranteed is a good story, and maybe, just maybe, a lifelong aversion to herbal blends. Somewhere in Europe, a chemist invents a molecule meant for lab rats. Instead, it's about to become the backbone of a multi-billion-dollar headache for ER doctors everywhere. You probably missed this chapter in high school science class. Let's rewind a bit. You're not in a neon-lit gas station or a dorm room with questionable air quality. You're in a brightly lit lab, probably somewhere in the UK or Germany, in the 1990s. There's a guy in a white coat, safety goggles, and an expression that says, "I just want to help humanity, or at least win tenure." His job? To develop new synthetic molecules that can imitate cannabinoids, the active ingredients in cannabis, without, all the complicated politics and international law enforcement. The scientist's name might be Dr. John W. Huffman, JWH, if you want to impress your friends and deeply concern your parents, who synthesizes compounds like JWH18 for research. His goal isn't to create a party drug for bored teenagers. He's interested in understanding the body's endocannabinoid system. Maybe these new chemicals will help fight pain, reduce inflammation, or finally let someone's grandma sleep through the night. Noble intentions, careful paperwork, and definitely not planning to accidentally launch a legal weed apocalypse. The recipe for disaster, though, is hiding in the footnotes. Huffman publishes his findings, as good scientists do. They're meant for medical journals, PhD candidates, and maybe a couple of insomniac research librarians. But out in the wilds of the early internet, someone notices. A few chemistry hobbyists, some entrepreneurs, and a handful of people who really want to get high without failing a drug test. Wait a minute, they think. This is all public knowledge? You can almost hear the collective ding as the world's sketchiest light bulb turns on. Enter the next phase of the story. Back alley chemistry goes global. Chemists with slightly fewer scruples and a lot more ambition take the published blueprints and get to work. Industrial labs in China, Eastern Europe, and anywhere you can ship acetone in bulk start churning out cannabinoids by the barrel. The motto? If it's not illegal yet, it's good enough for retail. There are spreadsheets, flowcharts, probably a motivational poster that says, "Science. Sometimes it just gets weird." Meanwhile, the scientists in the original labs are blissfully unaware that their molecules have gone viral in the worst way. They're publishing papers, going to conferences, maybe picking up an award for most likely to be misunderstood by teenagers. They have no idea their work is being stuffed into foil packets covered in psychedelic artwork, hawked on websites with names like Herbal Revolution 420.biz, or smoked behind dumpsters at American strip malls. When the calls start coming in, first from journalists, then from poison control centers, there's a collective sigh in the research community. This was never the plan. No one puts on a lab coat dreaming of inventing the world's sketchiest gas station product. They wanted to cure cancer, not inspire YouTube compilation videos of people trying to moonwalk while their brain plays the dial-up modem noise. The irony? Most of the chemists behind Spice wouldn't recognize a party if it was pipetted into their morning coffee. Some are genuinely horrified by what's happened. Others develop a kind of gallows humor. Well, one mutters over a cup of bad conference coffee. At least we know the molecules cross the blood-brain barrier. It's not much consolation to the ER nurses, but it's something. And so, you have the world's most accidental criminal empire, one built not on greed, but on the scientific method, peer review, and a tragic lack of foresight. The lesson? Science is powerful, curious, and sometimes just a little bit naive. Hand someone a new molecule, and you never know if it'll end up saving lives or just make Tuesday night in the suburbs a whole lot weirder. Welcome to the wonderful, terrifying world of unintended consequences. The scientists meant well. The world, as usual, had other plans. It's 2007, and lawmakers are busy arguing about flip phones. Meanwhile, someone's figured out you can skirt every drug law by changing a single molecule. It's like legal whack-a-mole, but with more seizures. Let's paint the scene. Picture a legislative hearing room, politicians in ill-fitting suits, still marveling at the new Bluetooth headset their nephew set up, debating whether MySpace is corrupting the youth. The phrase synthetic cannabinoids isn't even in the vocabulary yet. If you told them you could get high off something called spice, they'd assume you were seasoning a casserole. Meanwhile, in a strip mall on the edge of town, the real action is happening. Behind the register, a teenager is selling a new blend of herbal incense every week, like clockwork. Today's special, Black Mamba Ultra. Tomorrow, Mr. Happy Cloud. The trick isn't in what's on the label, it's what's on the inside. That inside is a constantly shifting alphabet soup of molecules, each one only slightly different from the last, but just enough to be technically, gloriously legal. You, ever the intrepid explorer, stroll into your local head shop. Maybe you're feeling bold. Maybe you're feeling like your job's random drug screening program has really gotten out of hand. On the shelf, new packets appear every week, each with a legal disclaimer so dense it might as well be an iTunes agreement. Not for human consumption, contains no controlled substances. Do not eat, smoke, snort, or look at sideways. But you know the game. Everybody does. Why does this work? Because the law, as written, is a slow, lumbering beast. If a drug isn't specifically named on a list, it's not illegal yet. So, some very clever, very persistent chemist changes one part of the molecule, add a carbon, remove a hydrogen, throw in a sprinkle of proprietary blend, and, presto, you have a brand new legal high. It's like Mad Libs, but with more ambulances. Lawmakers try to keep up. They schedule a meeting, draft a bill, and announce with great fanfare that JWH-18 is now a Schedule Y substance. The very next week, a new blend hits the shelves, JWH-073, now with 12% more existential dread. You have to admire the creativity, if not the safety. In this arms race, science is moving at the speed of retail. Synthetic chemists, half of them in white coats, half of them in pajamas, are scouring chemical patents and research papers, hunting for obscure molecules that haven't yet been outlawed. These aren't mad scientists in Gothic castles. These are regular folks with access to Alibaba and a deep suspicion of authority. They mix up batches, slap a sticker on the bag, and ship them around the world, all before the ink dries on the last ban. You'd think someone would eventually ask, is this really a good idea? But that would require a pause in the relentless quest for loopholes. Instead, you get an entire generation of people trying to guess what's in their incense tonight. Is it the same stuff as last time? Is it stronger? Will you get mellow, or will you see through time? The answer is always, nobody knows. It's like roulette, but with more paranoia and less French. And as soon as a batch starts causing problems, maybe a few hospitalizations, maybe some wild stories on the local news, the chemists are already on to the next formula. Meanwhile, the ER doctors have to Google what molecule you might have smoked this week. Spoiler, there's never a good answer. Welcome to the legal high arms race, where the only rule is try not to blink. For every ban, there's a new blend. For every regulation, a new workaround. It's the world's least satisfying game of catch-up, and you're right in the middle, one step ahead of the law, and just one step behind common sense. Who's buying this stuff? Teenagers who think research chemicals means extra credit. Soldiers avoiding drug tests. Club kids who just want to see God in a parking lot. Congratulations, you're all part of history now. Let's meet the cast. First up, high school daredevils who spend lunch periods scouring forums, convinced that if it's legal, it's basically fine. You're probably one of them, or at least you were. Maybe you heard about spice from a friend who knows a guy, or maybe you just got tired of explaining to your mom why there's always a weird smell coming from your sock drawer. The thrill isn't just in getting high, it's in beating the system. Take that, the man. Then there are the college students. They majored in whatever's cheapest at the gas station, minoring in advanced poor decisions. It's Friday night, you're low on funds, and the weed guy hasn't texted back since he started focusing on his band. So, you and your friends pile into a car, find the only convenience store open at 2 a.m., and buy a shiny packet called Ultra Mystic Dreams. Sure, you can't pronounce half the ingredients, but there's a dragon on the bag, and that seems like a good omen. You roll it up, light it, and 5 minutes later, you're seriously considering a career as a park bench philosopher. Let's not forget the club kids. These are the people who see the words herbal incense and think. This will pair nicely with my LED gloves and 6 Red Bulls. The dance floor is throbbing. The bass is vibrating through your chest, and you just want to feel something. Preferably something that makes you forget the $30 cover charge. You try a few puffs of spice out behind the club, and for a moment, everything is neon. Then someone starts talking to a parking meter, convinced it's giving life advice. Military folks are in the mix, too. For them, it's not about rebellion or raving, it's about reality. Drug tests are a constant looming threat, like a pop quiz with consequences that could end your career. So when you hear there's something undetectable that delivers a cannabis-like high, you listen. You buy a packet, maybe on a base in the Middle East, or a strip mall back home, and take the risk because, let's face it, boredom is a dangerous thing. And finally, there's the deeply confused. Adults who wandered into the store looking for beef jerky, saw the herbal blend display, and thought, why not? Maybe you're just chasing the ghost of your youth. Maybe you read an article in a health magazine that said, Blue Lotus is relaxing. 2 hours later, you're sprawled on your recliner, rethinking your life choices while the cat judges you in silence. What all these groups have in common isn't just questionable taste, it's a pioneering spirit. You're on the frontier of pharmacological adventure, riding the line between innovation and catastrophe. There are no instructions, no elders to guide you, and the only reviews come from people with usernames like CrazyBlaze420. One says, best high ever, felt like a wizard. The next says, had to call my mom, 0/10, never again. There's a camaraderie in the chaos. In dorm rooms, basements, and parking lots, you share your stories, good, bad, and utterly bizarre. Somebody always says, I don't really feel anything, right? Before standing up too fast and announcing they can smell colors. Someone else claims it's just like weed, but the haunted look in their eyes tells a different story. In the end, you're part of a grand experiment, one that nobody signed up for, but everyone keeps participating in anyway. Maybe you come out the other side with a story, a lesson, or at least a new respect for anything labeled proprietary blend. Maybe you just end up with a new appreciation for the stability of regular, boring life. Either way, welcome to the Wild West of synthetic highs. Don't worry, you're in questionable company. Why is every packet covered in fire-breathing reptiles? Because nothing says safe and natural like apocalyptic fantasy art and bold Comic Sans warning labels. Pro tip, if it says potpourri, maybe don't smoke it. Let's take a stroll down the head shop aisle. Under the flickering fluorescent lights, you're greeted by a wall of neon pouches that look less like medicine and more like something you'd win at a carnival if you threw a ring around a rubber duck. Every package is a fever dream. There are wizards riding motorcycles, lightning bolts striking pyramids, and at least 3 bags featuring a poorly drawn Grim Reaper giving you a thumbs up. If you're thinking, surely this must be regulated, I regret to inform you, the only regulation is that the more unhinged the artwork, the higher the sales. It's not just dragons and demons. There are space monkeys, psychedelic tigers, and brands named after literally anything cool a 6th grader could think of. Firestorm Extreme, Galactic Thunder, Zombie Chill. You might as well be buying Yu-Gi-Oh cards, except the real danger here is ending up on a medical chart titled Unusual Cardiac Events. Sometimes, just for variety, you'll find packets designed to look classy, with gold trim and names like Serenity. But make no mistake, there's still a demon surfing a lava wave somewhere in the corner. Graphic design is not so much a profession in this business as a dare. And then, the warnings. Oh, the warnings. Every bag is a legal fever dream. Not for human consumption, it screams, right above the instructions for burning as incense or spiritual aromatherapy. The more you're told not to smoke it, the more it seems like an invitation. It's a reverse psychology arms race. Absolutely do not, under any circumstances, roll this up and inhale it. Unless, of course, you want to know what your spirit animal is. But seriously, don't. Let's be honest, nobody ever used this stuff as incense. Nobody's living room has ever smelled better because of a Dragon Claw blend. Instead, you and everyone you know treat the warnings as part of the experience. Do not ingest just means do not get caught. If the label says only for research purposes, congratulations, you're now part of a very unofficial clinical trial with absolutely no controls and a lot of nervous laughter. Marketing these herbal blends is an art form born of necessity and pure absurdity. You can't call it what it is, synthetic cannabinoids, because that would make it sound illegal, and it would probably scare off everyone except the bravest or most desperate. So, you give it a name that says nothing and everything at once. Spice, K2, Happy Joker. The more mysterious, the better. Is it a flavor, a feeling, or just a bad idea in a shiny bag? The answer is yes. Color is key. The more radioactive, the better. Holographic foil, glitter ink, and packaging that can be seen from space are all part of the strategy. You're not buying something healthy, you're buying an experience, and that experience should look like an energy drink and a heavy metal album cover had a baby in a sticker factory. But the true genius is in plausible deniability. If anyone asks, it's just a potpourri, officer. You could theoretically decorate your apartment, freshen your sock drawer, or perform some mysterious ritual involving dragons. But everyone knows the truth. Even the store clerk, who gives you a knowing nod as you check out and slips your incense into a brown paper bag, as if privacy can make up for poor decision-making. In the end, the marketing isn't just a sideshow, it's the main attraction. It sells rebellion, mystery, and just a little bit of danger, all wrapped up in a shiny package you know you probably shouldn't open. But you do anyway, because if there's one thing more powerful than a dragon, it's curiosity, and really, that's the most dangerous ingredient of all. You light up, expecting mellow vibes. Instead, you get a full-body existential crisis, a weird metallic taste, and the sudden realization that the universe is a mistake. This is not the herbal incense you were promised. Let's rewind to 5 minutes ago. You're with your friends, maybe on a sagging futon, maybe on a curb outside the world's sketchiest gas station. Everyone's hyped up, arguing about who gets the first puff, because the bravest, or most gullible, person always goes first. You're hoping for something chill, a little giggle, maybe the munchies, maybe a 45-minute appreciation for lava lamps. You have snacks ready and your favorite playlist queued. In your mind, this is just weed's awkward, slightly legal cousin. But the moment the smoke hits your tongue, you realize this cousin was probably adopted. The taste isn't herbal, it's industrial. Metallic, like licking a 9-volt battery with undertones of burnt carpet and just a hint of something you remember from high school chemistry lab. Your mouth dries up instantly. This is not nature's bounty. This is what happens when a lab accident gets promoted. Seconds tick by. You feel off. Not stoned and giggly off, but should I call my mom? Off. Your thoughts race. Is it supposed to be this intense? Why is the ceiling breathing? Did my hands always look like this? Around you, your friends are all making the same face, a mix of curiosity and regret. Like the crowd at a magic show where the magician has just disappeared the rabbit, the table, and possibly the concept of happiness. Your heartbeat kicks up a gear. You're suddenly aware of every internal organ you own, and a few you're pretty sure don't exist. There's a chill up your spine, a tingle in your toes, and a full-blown symposium of anxious voices in your head. You try to stand up, but your legs are taking a personal day. Someone next to you starts laughing, but it quickly turns into nervous silence. Someone else claims they feel great, but you notice they're gripping the couch with both hands. Here's the thing. Synthetic cannabinoids are not a gentle ride. They're a roller coaster with the safety bar duct taped on. Unlike real weed, which works with your body's natural systems, this stuff is like sending a spam email to your brain and clicking every link. The high comes on fast, hard, and unpredictable. There are no mellow jazz notes, just dubstep and confusion. A minute later, your mind is racing at full speed, but getting nowhere. Are you hot? Are you cold? Both, somehow. You get the sneaking suspicion your phone is judging you. You're convinced you can hear colors and taste disappointment. Somewhere in your mind, you wonder if you'll ever be normal again, or if you ever were. If you're lucky, the whole thing lasts 20 minutes and you land, shaken but intact. If you're not, you spend the next hour contemplating the meaning of life, the fragility of consciousness, and whether it's possible to just walk out of your own brain for a while. You try to focus on reality, but reality is busy buffering. And let's talk about that herbal incense label. By now you realize it's a cosmic joke. This isn't incense. This is a psychological escape room designed by someone who failed empathy class. There's no chill, no relaxing body high, just a funhouse mirror of your own anxiety and a newfound respect for warning labels. Eventually, the effects fade. You're left in a pile of existential crumbs, vowing never to touch this stuff again, at least until next Friday, when someone finds a new flavor and you start the cycle over. Lesson learned? Maybe. Regret? Absolutely. But congratulations, you survived your first hit of spice. And the only thing more warped than the high is the fact that you willingly signed up for it. Somewhere between the beef jerky and the energy drinks, a new gold rush is happening. Every corner store suddenly stocks K2. The cashiers pretend they've never seen you before, just in case. Let's set the mood. It's late, you're tired, and you're pretty sure the only people awake right now are you, the graveyard shift clerk, and a raccoon doing mysterious business behind the dumpster. The harsh fluorescent lights flicker above aisles of stale snacks, discount phone chargers, and questionable hot dogs that have been rotating on their metal rods since the Clinton administration. Yet, tucked away between the 5-hour energy and the scratch-off tickets, you spot them. Rows and rows of glittery foil packets. Spice, K2, Cloud9. Their names sound like off-brand energy drinks or rejected theme park rides. It's an unlikely setting for a chemical revolution, but here it is. The new cash crop isn't grown in fields. It's shipped in bulk, in vacuum-sealed bags, from mysterious warehouses in places you'd struggle to spell. It arrives by the crate, marked as incense or potpourri, destined for display between lighters and breath mints. You wonder if you're hallucinating, but no, there really is a special on Joker Smoke if you buy a Slurpee and a car air freshener. You watch as a steady parade of customers drift in. Some are regulars, college students with backpacks, giggling like they're getting away with something. Others are older, moving fast, eyes darting like they're buying black market organs instead of herbal blends. Everyone's here for the same reason. It's legal, for now, and nobody asks too many questions. The beauty of the gas station is plausible deniability. The clerk just shrugs when you plop 3 citrus blaze packets on the counter, rings you up, and bags your shame with a monotone "have a nice night." No ID required, no weird looks, unless you try to pay in loose change or ask, "Is this stuff safe?" The answer to that question is always a long, uncomfortable pause, followed by, "I just work here," and you believe them. Gas station staff are the high priests of the gray market, passing on forbidden knowledge with the subtlety of a poker face. They know all the secrets, what's in the back, which brand is freshest, and when the next shipment comes in. But they will take those secrets to the grave, or at least to their next minimum wage job. The economics are, frankly, genius. Markup on a 3-bag of dried chemicals, sometimes 500%. For every bag of legal weed sold, the store can afford to replace the broken slushy machine or, finally fix that bathroom lock. It's a win-win-win, except for the customers, who are playing molecular roulette every time they light up. You're part of an invisible marketplace, exchanging cash for a packet with a cartoon lizard on it, all under the approving gaze of a plastic security camera no one has monitored since 2012. It's a social experiment in plain sight. Local teenagers buy herbal blends for their Friday night adventures. Truckers pick some up for the long haul, hoping for a jolt that doesn't show up on a drug screen. One regular just likes the way it smells. Sure, Steve, whatever you say. The shelves are restocked daily. Sometimes a new brand appears overnight. One week it's Dragon Spice. The next, it's Happy Clown. The variety is endless, the regulation non-existent, and the story's unforgettable. In this alternate economy, trust is measured in shrugs and side glances. Nobody asks, nobody tells, and as you walk out the sliding doors with your neon bag in hand, you realize you're now part of the only gold rush in history that started between a Slim Jim and a can of Monster, under the flicker of broken lights and the suspicious gaze of a cashier who swears you've never met. No one knows what this stuff is, but everyone agrees it's probably your fault. News stories warn about herbal highs, teachers confiscate glittery packets, and the DARE officer just wants to go back to warning you about glue. Let's set the mood. It's a Tuesday morning in the school auditorium. You and 300 other students are fidgeting in folding chairs, while the DARE officer, retired from the front lines of parking lot policing, paces in front of a slideshow that hasn't been updated since 1998. There's still a photo of the marijuana leaf, an ominous pile of white powder, and, for some reason, a can of whipped cream. But now there's a new villain in town, a shiny packet labeled Mr. Happy with a cartoon dragon doing backflips. The officer holds it aloft like it's the One Ring. Who knows what this is, he asks. You stare at your shoes, suddenly aware that everyone suspects you. Back in the classroom, teachers are locked in a daily battle against incense that smells like burnt grass and mystery chemicals. Locker checks turn up crumpled foil packets tucked between textbooks and last year's lunch money. Every homeroom has that one kid, let's call him Kyle, who brags about smoking legal weed and then spends the next period nervously eating paste. Teachers try to keep up, Googling K2 during lunch breaks and consulting charts with names like recognizing the top 25 synthetic drugs and how to pretend you know what you're talking about. At home, the situation is no better. Your parents are watching the evening news, where a somber anchor delivers a special report. Tonight, a warning about a new drug called Spice. Sold legally, smoked by your children, coming soon to a bus stop near you. Your mom clutches her pearls. Your dad, who once inhaled at a Rolling Stones concert and still feels guilty, demands to know if you've been doing potpourri. You try to explain that you're just here for the pizza rolls, but no one believes you. The packets are so shiny, the warning so vague, and your alibi so flimsy. The best part? No adult actually knows what this stuff does. Every authority figure is operating from a manual written in crayon. Teachers share horror stories in the break room. Did you hear about the kid who smoked Scooby snacks and thought he was a garden gnome for 3 days? Urban legends multiply. The less anyone understands, the scarier it gets. Last week, a PTA meeting spent an hour debating whether herbal incense was the same thing as oregano. A dad insists he saw someone trip out after smelling a packet. The only person more stressed than you is the school nurse, who started keeping Gatorade and a portable fan on standby. Meanwhile, the DARE officer is losing sleep. He spent a decade perfecting his monologue about the dangers of sniffing glue, and now kids are showing up with designer drugs from a strip mall that no one can pronounce. He paces the halls, clutching a laminated flyer that says, "Just say no to JWH-18. He dreams of a simpler time when his biggest worry was catching someone with a can of spray cheese. All this confusion creates a perfect storm. Every authority figure is overreacting. Every student is underestimating the risks. And every parent is convinced the apocalypse will start in the school parking lot. You become the suspect by default because you're under 25, own a backpack, and once said the word herbal in conversation. In the end, no one's really in control. Not the teachers, not the parents, and definitely not the DARE officer, who's on the verge of a career change to yoga instruction. You get through another week of locker checks, awkward assemblies, and endless suspicion, while the packets just keep appearing like confetti at a parade. Congratulations, you're officially the main character in a suburban moral panic. Just remember, don't let them catch you with actual potpourri, or you'll never hear the end of it. You end up in the ER, heart racing, pupils like dinner plates. The nurse asks what you took. You point to a packet that says not for human consumption. She sighs and wheels in the doctor, who's just Googling, "What is JWH-18? Welcome to the cutting edge of medicine, where your medical chart is about to include phrases like spice intoxication and recommend monitoring for existential panic. The waiting room is full of fluorescent lights and outdated magazines. The nurse takes your blood pressure, which is higher than your GPA, and asks, "Any allergies?" You almost say Comic Sans, but now is not the time for jokes. Let's pause for a second and appreciate the plight of the modern ER doctor. They went to school for a decade, studied every organ, passed a test on diseases that only exist in textbooks, and now here you are, sweaty, vibrating, and clutching a glittery bag labeled Zombie Dreams. The only thing more mysterious than your symptoms is the ingredient list, which includes words like wild daga, proprietary blend, and do not call this number. The nurse leaves you with a cup of ice water and a blood pressure cuff, giving you the same look she probably gives her cat when it's caught licking the butter. Meanwhile, in the hallway, the doctor is on their phone, squinting at medical forums. Acute synthetic cannabinoid toxicity differential diagnosis maybe? Do we have any textbooks from after 2007? The answer is no. They come in with a smile that's supposed to be reassuring, but it mostly says, "I've seen everything and nothing makes sense anymore." The doctor asks what happened. You do your best. "I just took a few hits, and now I'm convinced I can taste electricity." She nods like that's the most normal thing she's heard today, which it probably is. In the room next door, someone's got their finger stuck in a bowling ball. She runs through the list. Are you dizzy? Yes. Are you nauseous? Very. Are you hallucinating? Unclear, but you'd rather not talk about the dancing iguana in the corner. Your vitals are all over the place. The doctor's notes will later read, "Patient is experiencing moderate to severe regret, with complications of sweating, trembling, and philosophical dread." Meanwhile, The rest of the medical staff has gathered in the hallway, swapping war stories about herbal highs. One nurse mentions a patient who tried to climb the vending machine, convinced it was dispensing answers to the universe. Another recalls a guy who ate an entire tray of hospital pudding, claimed he was fine, then tried to order a taxi to the moon. Here's the harsh truth. The medical community has no idea what to do with this stuff. There's no antidote, no magic pill, no turn off the fake weed button. Treatment is mostly fluids, time, and gentle reminders that you probably shouldn't smoke anything that comes with a warning label in bold, all-caps font. They'll monitor your heart, keep an eye on your breathing, and maybe, if you're lucky, find a free blanket that doesn't smell like sadness. There's a bit of gallows humor among the staff. The doctor mutters, "When I said I wanted to help people, I meant antibiotics, not K2-induced existential horror." Someone cracks a joke about starting a bingo card for new spice blends. 2 patients on Black Mamba and 1 on Scooby Snacks. Bingo. Eventually, the symptoms fade. Your blood pressure calms down. The dancing iguana waves goodbye. The nurse hands you a discharge sheet with instructions. Rest, hydrate, and next time, stick to snacks. You shuffle out into the night, vowing never to touch herbal incense again, at least until your next bad decision. So, the verdict from the entire medical community. This isn't in the textbooks, but don't. Just don't. And if you do, please at least bring a packet the next time, so everyone can update their bingo card. Half your friend group is convinced they can hear the CIA. The other half is hiding in a closet, debating whether their teeth are melting. Congratulations, you've just become the plot of every anti-drug PSA from 1994. You wanted a chill night, maybe some snacks, some bad movies, a little something to take the edge off after a week of pretending you understand your job. Someone brought a bag of legal weed with a dragon on it, and, against all odds, this seemed like a good idea. The plan: pass it around, relax, laugh at old memes, and forget the world. What actually happens? Everyone is suddenly living in their own private Twilight Zone episode, and you're left rethinking all your life choices. The first sign that things are going sideways, someone starts narrating their every thought out loud. I think my heart is beating in Morse code. Did anyone else just see the cat do a backflip? If I close my eyes, am I still real? Laughter is contagious at first, but it's nervous, the kind that echoes in empty rooms and haunted houses. Someone else claims they can smell their own memories, and you realize this is not going to be a relaxing evening. You check on the closet crew. They're running a risk assessment on whether teeth can, in fact, liquefy. One person is convinced their tongue is missing. The other has decided that sitting in a laundry basket is the safest option, since laundry never hurt anyone. You try to be supportive, but you're starting to think the couch cushions are plotting against you. Meanwhile, the kitchen team is deep in a philosophical debate over whether orange juice is just citrus propaganda. You listen for a moment, realize none of these words have ever been said together in history, and move on. In the bathroom, someone is staring at their reflection, whispering, "I've made a huge mistake," while the faucet drips a beat that seems weirdly threatening. At this point, you remember the anti-drug videos from school, those melodramatic after-school specials where a cartoon voice would chant, "This is your brain on drugs." In those, the worst thing that happened was you broke a vase or forgot your own name. In real life, your brain has declared independence from the rest of your body, and you're 85% sure your phone is a government tracking device. Somewhere, The DARE officer from your childhood is sighing with vindication. Time starts to lose meaning. Minutes stretch into hours. Or maybe you've just been staring at the microwave clock for 3 days. Your playlist takes on new dimensions. A chill, lo-fi beat suddenly sounds like an alien transmission, and you're pretty sure the lyrics are a coded message. One friend is giggling uncontrollably. The other is quietly weeping over a broken potato chip. You make a mental note never to trust anything called zombie cloud again. Stories from nights like these take on a mythic quality. Months later, everyone remembers things differently. One friend swears they spoke fluent dolphin. Another insists they saw a ghost. It was just the neighbor's cat. Someone else will claim with absolute certainty that they unlocked the secret of the universe, but then forgot it as soon as their phone rang. The rest just remember the taste of regret and the smell of burnt incense that lingered for days. By the end of the night, you're exhausted, dehydrated, and ready to return to regular reality, even if regular reality means laundry and boring group texts. Everyone swears they're never doing that again, but you know how it goes. Urban legends need new chapters. The next group will pick a new flavor, a new cautionary tale, and the cycle continues. In the morning, sunlight feels suspiciously bright. You order greasy breakfast food and agree, in that unspoken way, to never mention the details again. But deep down, you know you've just become a living, breathing warning story, the kind that starts with, "Remember that night we tried?" Congratulations. You survived the bad trip, and now you're immortalized in your friend's collective memory as a cautionary tale, or, depending on the mood, the punchline. Suddenly, headlines everywhere. Spice banned. Except you walk into the store and see Ultra K 2 Extreme. Surprise, they just changed one molecule and called it a day. The legal loophole Olympics begin. Let's set the scene. It's 2010 and the news cycle is in full panic mode. Every morning show, local newspaper, and slightly worried blog is warning you about the synthetic marijuana crisis. There are special reports, interviews with experts, and at least one panel where someone brings out a giant bag of mystery herbs for dramatic effect. Parents everywhere are clutching their pearls. Lawmakers spring into action, determined to put an end to the herbal epidemic sweeping the youth. You can almost hear the sound of gavels slamming and new laws being written. The bans start small at first. Local ordinances, city councils, then whole states. K2 and spice are now illegal in 4 counties and 2 suburbs named after trees. Your town passes a motion in a room that smells like burnt coffee and disappointment. Somewhere, an official stamps a big red no on a list of molecules, as if that will magically solve the problem. The moment one chemical is banned, the companies behind these blends leap into action. They call up their research team, which is probably just a guy with a Wi-Fi connection and too much time on his hands. Within days, the packets on the shelves are rebranded. New formula, enhanced potency. The fine print now lists a different alphabet soup. AM2, 201, UR, 144, XLR11. These names sound like a rejected robot models, but they all do the same thing, get you high and terrify your local ER staff. The game is on. Regulators ban one molecule, the chemists invent 2 more. You have to admire the commitment. Somewhere, a government agency is trying to keep up, flipping through chemistry textbooks and muttering, "Well, that wasn't in the curriculum." Politicians hold press conferences, announcing new bans with all the confidence of someone who still calls it the Facebook. Meanwhile, Your local head shop owner has already restocked the shelf with Mango Cloud Super X and quietly updates the price tags. You start to see the absurdity. Every week, there's a new batch, a new blend, a new name. The packaging becomes even wilder. Now there are glow-in-the-dark labels and bonus stickers, just in case you weren't already confused. At some point, someone realizes that the more intense the warning, the better the sales. Absolutely not for human consumption, the bag insists in bold red letters, which everyone translates as, "Definitely light this up at your next party." For the authorities, enforcement becomes a game of legal whack-a-mole. Police raid one convenience store, and by lunchtime, another shop across town is already selling the latest, fully legal blend. News stories alternate between crackdown success and new synthetic hits the streets. The war on drugs has gone from gritty cop show to slapstick comedy, where the only rule is that nobody knows the rules. Meanwhile, the users, intrepid, mildly reckless, and mostly just tired of being bored, keep rolling the dice. Some people become armchair chemists, reading up on new research chemicals like they're collecting Pokemon. Others just grab whatever's on the shelf and hope for the best, blissfully unaware that Ultra K2 Extreme might be the same old chaos in a shinier wrapper. The only ones really losing are the scientists who originally developed these compounds. Their inboxes fill up with angry letters, their names become shorthand for bad decisions, and their research, meant to help people, now powers the world's most unpredictable legal loophole. In the end, regulators keep striking back, and the molecule shuffle keeps spinning. The shelves fill, the bans multiply, and somewhere a high schooler looks at a glowing packet, shrugs, and says, "I guess it's still legal, right?" Welcome to the loop, the endless, slightly ridiculous dance between chemistry and law, with a dash of existential dread for flavor. Every time a law passes, a new synthetic is born, somehow worse than the last. Scientists in secret labs play guess what'll make the news next. You just wanted to chill out, not become a guinea pig in a chemistry experiment. Let's picture the action. On one side, lawmakers, hunched over chemical diagrams with the intensity of someone trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. On the other, a loose network of researchers and entrepreneurial chemists with a knack for finding molecular backroads nobody else considered. Somewhere in the middle, you, a tired human with a handful of change, standing in a convenience store, choosing tonight's adventure from a lineup of glowing foil packets with names like Dragon's Breath 2.0 and Happy Lizard Ultra. This is not what you signed up for. You were hoping for something mellow, maybe a little giggly, maybe a little introspective, like listening to old vinyl on a rainy night. Instead, you're getting the Amazing Race, Science Edition, where the contestants don't win a prize, just the knowledge that their creation stayed legal for exactly 13 days before a guy in a suit with no sense of humor added it to the banned list. Back in the labs, if you can call them that, the process is both high stakes and, frankly, absurd. There's no Bond villain lair. Just a bunch of underpaid chemists, a handful of dusty textbooks, and an industrial-sized barrel of acetone. Their mission, find a molecule, any molecule, that will get the job done without actually being the molecule the law just banned. It's a frantic round of molecular musical chairs, and nobody wants to be left standing when the music stops. The creativity is stunning, if a little terrifying. Out comes a new cannabinoid, let's call it XLR-12. It's technically different from XLR-11, which is technically different from JWH-18, which is technically different from whatever you tried last week. None of these were ever tested on humans in a lab, except for the world's largest, least ethical clinical trial, aka you and your friends on a Friday night. Nobody really knows what will happen next. The package says herbal incense. The store clerk shrugs. The internet offers wildly conflicting reviews. It made me feel like a dolphin, says one. Couldn't stop sneezing for 4 hours, says another. Great if you enjoy being suspicious of your own furniture, adds a third. The only thing everyone agrees on, the effects are unpredictable, and somehow the new blends always seem a little more chaotic than the last. Meanwhile, news stories keep pace. Each week, another synthetic cannabinoid is blamed for a wave of hospital visits, or, more often, bizarre behavior. The local news has a field day, teens gone wild on zombie cloud. Somewhere, a government scientist tries to decode a chemical structure with a magnifying glass and a bottle of aspirin. The cycle is relentless. Ban a blend, invent a new one, outlaw the blue packet, rebrand it green. The packages grow more outlandish, the names more cartoonish, the ingredients more mysterious. There's no time for safety testing or long-term studies, just a mad dash to beat the next legislative session. It's a chemistry Olympics with no medals, only headaches. You, caught in the middle, become a sort of amateur scientist yourself. You learn to recognize the warning signs, extra bold Comic Sans, phrases like "for research only," and the always suspect new formula. You begin to appreciate the stability of ordinary things, like snacks, naps, and TV shows that don't involve chemical diagrams. In the end, nobody's really winning. Not the chemists, not the lawmakers, and definitely not the users. You just wanted a little relaxation, and instead, you got an inside look at how science, law, and the desire for a legal high can create a recipe for unpredictability. So here's to the chemistry Olympics. May the odds and the molecules ever be in your favor. On the back of the packet, not intended for human consumption. In your brain, are my arms supposed to feel like spaghetti? Welcome to a world where the only predictable side effect is regret. Let's be honest, nobody reads the fine print until it's too late. You pick up the packet, flip it over, and see a string of legal warnings. For research only, not for ingestion. Do not operate heavy machinery. You squint at the ingredients: Damiana, Blue Lotus, synthetic alphabet soup, and one big helping of plausible deniability. You shrug. How bad could it be? If you needed a lawyer to get high, you'd have gone to law school. You light up, expecting a gentle ride. Instead, you're introduced to the full menu of side effects, none of which were listed in your high school health textbook. It starts small. Maybe a little tingling in the fingertips, a sense that the couch is deeper than you remember, or a brief existential pause as you try to remember if you've always had this many toes. You glance around the room, seeking confirmation from your friends, but they're all having their own private conversations with gravity. The fun part about synthetic cannabinoids, the unpredictability. Some people get chatty, others get silent, and you're contemplating whether your arms are still attached. Every packet is a lottery ticket. Sometimes you get a mellow buzz. Other times, you win an all-expenses-paid trip to Anxiety Island. Your heart starts racing, your mind is full of thoughts you never needed, and your skin feels like a poorly fitted wetsuit. You try to steady yourself, but your legs are having a separate adventure and are not taking questions at this time. Then comes the nausea. For some, it's a passing queasiness. For others, it's a complete betrayal by the digestive system. You start bargaining with your stomach, promising never to trust anything labeled Ultra Blend again. Meanwhile, the room tilts. Are you on a boat? Did you just phase into another dimension? Hard to say. You clutch a pillow for stability, convinced it's your lifeline. Anxiety kicks in. You're suddenly aware of your heartbeat, your breathing, and possibly the fact that your left eyebrow is twitching Morse code. Time slows to a crawl. 5 minutes feel like an hour. You're gripped by a sense of doom so dramatic it deserves its own soundtrack. Was that a siren outside? Is someone coming? Should you apologize to your parents preemptively, just in case? If you're lucky, the paranoia will pass. If not, you might find yourself Googling how to get unhigh, reading forums that offer terrible advice and even worse spelling. Your phone screen seems too bright, and the last text you sent is now a riddle you can't solve. Meanwhile, your friends aren't much help. One is staring into the fridge, seeking meaning in condiments. Another is convinced the coffee table is breathing. Physically, things get weird. You might get shaky, sweaty, or suddenly freeze in place because your muscles have declared a strike. Some people faint, others just wish they could. Dizziness, dry mouth, wild temperature swings, and the ever-popular feeling that you've lost control of basic motor skills. If you try to stand up, you discover that the floor is both closer and farther away than it should be, a Schrodinger's floor situation. And after the panic and the trip through the valley of poor decisions, you get the come down. You're exhausted, emotionally drained, and more than a little embarrassed. You vow never to try that brand again, at least until someone comes over next week with a new flavor and a fresh packet of regret. The truth is, these side effects aren't rare. They're the main event. Welcome to the unpredictable roller coaster of synthetic highs, where every ride ends with a handshake from existential dread and a heartfelt promise to stick to snacks next time. If you're looking for relaxation, you might want to try yoga instead. At least with that, the only side effect is questionable flexibility. Military bases crack down, colleges ban anything that comes in foil, and HR departments quietly start adding herbal incense to the list of things to never mention at company picnics. Let's start with the military. You're stationed at a base where the list of forbidden substances grows faster than the line at the mess hall on taco night. Commanders are constantly updating random urinalysis policies, and everyone knows at least one guy who's convinced he's outsmarted the system. "You can't test for this stuff," he says, winking as he opens a suspicious packet labeled Jungle Madness. Spoiler: what the test can't catch, the symptoms definitely will. 10 minutes later, he's sweating through his uniform and rethinking every life decision that led to this moment. In the barracks, the urban legend spread fast. Did you hear about the sergeant who thought he could talk to pigeons after smoking Cloud 9? There's always a story. Somebody hallucinated the base commander's face in the tile grout. Somebody else tried to march their entire squad through a vending machine. The official policy is zero tolerance. The unofficial policy is don't get caught being weird. The only thing more dangerous than synthetic cannabinoids is explaining to your superior officer why you were found hugging a flagpole and reciting the Declaration of Independence backwards. On the college campus, things aren't much better. The administration is forever one step behind. The student handbook adds a new page every semester. Please refrain from using whatever this is. Residence hall RAs confiscate glittery bags from behind microwaves and under twin XL mattresses. The local health center keeps a special pamphlet on hand called So You Tried K2 Again. And yet, someone is always willing to try the new blend, usually during finals week or right after a bad breakup. Stress relief takes strange forms when you're 19 and operating on zero sleep. There's an unspoken competition to see who can find the weirdest legal high, like a scavenger hunt for regret. You, your roommate, and your roommate's sketchy friend Derek split the cost of a bag labeled Mystic Lightning, convinced this will be the time you all finally get it right. Instead, Derek starts insisting he's invented a new language. Your roommate claims he can see sound, and you spend 20 minutes watching your screensaver bounce around the room like it's modern art. In corporate America, things are subtler, but no less ridiculous. HR knows. HR always knows. One day, herbal incense is the subject of a wellness newsletter. The next, it's quietly added to the list of things not to bring up at the holiday party, along with politics, religion, and Janice's weird, homemade kombucha. Break room chatter changes. Remember Bob from accounting? Yeah, he tried that stuff at a bachelor party, still twitches every time someone says spice rack. Drug-free workplace policies get an addendum. No synthetic anything, even if it's labeled organic moonbeam. The problem is universal. Everybody thinks they're the exception. Soldiers say, "I'm trained for chaos. How bad can this be?" Students say, if it's legal, it's safe. Office workers say, at least it's not as weird as Gary's keto lunch. Reality checks roll in quickly. You learn to recognize the signs: excessive blinking, nervous laughter, the sudden urge to do a deep dive on conspiracy theories. Whether you're wearing combat boots, flip-flops, or loafers, the pattern is the same. Curiosity leads to a glittery bag, a questionable decision, and the inevitable round of never again. The next morning, you exchange stories, usually starting with "so last night," and end with a vow to stick to coffee, or maybe just meditation. It turns out nobody is immune, not the disciplined, the educated, or the employed. Synthetic highs don't care about your resume, your GPA, or your years of service. The only thing that matters is how well you can recover from the world's most unpredictable experiment. And next time someone asks if you want to try a new blend, you'll probably laugh, shake your head, and say, "I think I'll pass," at least until curiosity comes calling again. Reddit, Arrowhead, and 1,000 message boards light up with trip reports that start with, "I thought it'd be fine," and end with, "Why does my carpet taste purple?" Internet wisdom at its finest. You know the drill. You're curious, maybe a little nervous, and the foil packet in your hand has a dragon, a warning label, and more mystery than a Bigfoot documentary. So you turn to the internet for guidance. After all, who better to advise you on complex pharmacology than Chillbro93 and Kushwizard 420? If there's a place where science and personal responsibility go to take a nap, it's the online trip report. The forums are a digital Wild West, packed with self-proclaimed experts, armchair chemists, and people whose only qualification is survived 3 different blends and still has all their teeth. Some users give you an in-depth breakdown. Smoked 0.2 grams, onset in 3 minutes, felt like a marshmallow with anxiety. Others cut straight to the important stuff. Do not try Cloud Zombie Ultra. I saw the neighbor's dog become mayor of Cincinnati. Reddit threads grow long and wild. The original poster asks a simple question: is K too safe? 40 replies later, you've learned that it depends on your body weight, your star sign, whether Mercury is in retrograde, and how recently you've eaten garlic bread. Arrowhead vaults, meanwhile, are packed with stories that start with optimism. My friend said this is just like weed, and spiral into cosmic confusion. I tried to unlock my phone for 6 hours before realizing I was holding a banana. Some forums pretend to be scientific, but they operate on a system that's more folklore than fact. You'll find elaborate charts showing trip intensity versus brand reliability, usually compiled by someone with an anime avatar and access to Microsoft Excel. The advice ranges from almost helpful, start with a tiny amount and have water ready, to deeply unhelpful, sit in the fridge if you feel weird. Occasionally, someone suggests calling poison control, but the real crowd favorite is just ride it out and never tell your mom. What's universal is the loop. You read 10 horror stories, convince yourself it's all overblown, and then do it anyway. Because if a stranger on the internet can handle it, how bad can it be? Forums become a game of anecdotal Russian roulette. Every post is a coin flip between had a great time, would recommend, and time ceased to exist. Now I'm afraid of my own elbows. There's also the great taxonomy of synthetic blends, a catalog that changes faster than Pokemon cards in 3rd grade. Users debate the merits of Joker Extreme versus Maui Wowie 2.0. Some people claim allegiance to one brand. Others document their journey through every flavor on the market, like an explorer mapping uncharted territory. Except the territory is their own nervous system, and the map is drawn in crayon. The real entertainment comes from the comments section. Someone posts, "Felt like I was being chased by time-traveling raccoons," and 5 other users reply, "Same, bro." One person details the existential revelations they had on Dragoncloud Blue, and another offers a recipe for toast that allegedly brings you back to reality. As you scroll, you realize you're not really seeking advice. You're looking for reassurance that you're not alone. The internet has turned a risky solo adventure into a kind of group therapy for the chemically curious. You might not know what's in the packet, but at least you have company when the carpet starts tasting purple. When it's all over, you promise to write your own trip report. Tried Mystic Fire. Learned a lot about myself and my fear of laundry hampers. Would not recommend. And the cycle continues as each new blend gets its own thread, its own folklore, and a new generation of users asking the age-old question, is this stuff safe? Or am I about to see sound? Welcome to the forums. Science checked out hours ago, but the stories never end. Daytime TV loves a scandal. Now every suburban parent is convinced their kid is seconds, away from turning into a spice zombie. Fox News invents a new epidemic, and nobody can define synthetic cannabinoid without a flowchart. Let's tune in. It's 9 a.m., and the local news is already in crisis mode. Grainy surveillance footage loops on the TV. Someone in pajama pants, staggering out of a gas station, clutching a glowing packet and looking profoundly confused by both physics and doors. The anchor's voice is trembling. Experts warn this could be happening in your neighborhood. They cut to an expert whose credentials are concerned uncle and once watched Breaking Bad. He solemnly explains that spice is the most dangerous substance ever invented, except maybe gluten. Morning Talk shows Eat It Up. You're sipping bad coffee, half awake, while the hosts warn you that kids everywhere are buying legal highs online, at school, and probably from the family dog. They wave around a foil packet labeled Death Rider for the camera, careful not to touch it, as if it's radioactive. A demonstration follows. Here's how easy it is for your teen to buy synthetic marijuana. We sent an intern to a local store, smash cut to a nervous-looking college kid handing over $20 for a bag with a cartoon dinosaur on it. The morale of the story? No child is safe, not even in a gated community with a neighborhood watch and 3 labradoodles. Meanwhile, Fox News declares a full-blown epidemic. The banner at the bottom of the screen reads, "New drug threatens American values. Panelists compete to see who can look the most appalled." "My son told me about this," one says, "and now I never sleep." Another panelist holds up a diagram, which is basically a spider web labeled synthetic cannabinoid in the middle and regret radiating outward. There's a mention of zombies, always zombies. Have you seen these YouTube videos? This is our future. Suburban parents leap into action. Facebook groups light up. Someone shares a chain email warning that kids are injecting K2 into oranges and hiding them in their lunchboxes. Another parent claims they saw a spice party at the mall food court, which probably just involved too many orange Juliuses. Neighborhood watch groups start holding special meetings, passing around printouts from news websites, and that one cousin who works in law enforcement. Schools are next. The principal calls a special assembly. Posters appear in every hallway. "Say no to synthetics," illustrated with stock photos of concerned teens and packets that look suspiciously like pop rocks. Teachers are told to be on the lookout for unusual behavior, which, to be fair, describes half the student body on a regular Tuesday. The health teacher tries to explain what a cannabinoid receptor is and ends up drawing a smiley face and a frowny face on the whiteboard. But nobody actually knows what's in these packets. Not the parents, not the teachers, not even the news anchors. The only thing everyone agrees on, it must be stopped. Urban legends spring up overnight. Did you hear about the girl who smoked a whole bag and thought she was a lawn chair? My neighbor's nephew tried it, and now he only speaks in riddles. By lunchtime, half the school is convinced you can get a contact high just from looking at the packets. Pop culture takes over. TV shows drop references to synthetic highs. Cops and lawyers dramas shoehorn in a Spice episode where the villain is always a troubled teen from the wrong side of the tracks, and the solution is always a very special talk from an understanding adult. The message: beware. Fear everything. Trust no one under 25, especially if they own a hoodie. By the time the hysteria dies down, no one can remember what was fact, what was rumor, and what was just a slow news week. You, the actual person with first-hand experience, are left shaking your head at the spectacle. In the end, it's all just another entry in the long, weird history of moral panics, this time starring you, a shiny foil packet, and the world's most confusing flowchart. Ambulances fill up, ERs overflow, and suddenly everyone knows someone who had a really bad experience with that stuff. There's a reason why hospital staff flinch at the mention of legal weed. Let's rewind to a night you never wanted to remember. You're at a friend's house, on a couch that smells like a mixture of old pizza and new mistakes. Someone pulls out a glittery packet with a name like Nebula Chill, and before you know it, the room is thick with a chemical haze. Fast forward 30 minutes, and the fun is officially over. Someone is sweating buckets, another is pacing in circles muttering about time loops, and you're trying to decide if your heart is racing or breakdancing. This isn't a one-off. Across the country, ERs are reporting a tidal wave of cases that all start the same way. I thought it was legal. The staff groan as another patient arrives, wide-eyed, trembling, and clutching a half-empty bag of herbal incense. Some arrive by ambulance, others by the questionable driving skills of their even more paranoid friends. The triage nurse doesn't even ask what happened anymore. Instead, she just sighs, glances at the garish foil, and cues up the usual questions. Can you breathe? Do you know what year it is? Why do you think your hands are melting? Word spreads. everyone hears stories. Your cousin's friend's roommate tried it and spent the night convinced they were a rotisserie chicken. The kid down the street ended up running through the sprinklers in his pajamas at 3 a.m. after 2 puffs of scorpion blaze. Suddenly, your friend group's bravest member isn't the one with the highest tolerance. It's the one who managed to avoid the ambulance ride. Doctors and nurses are not amused. They went to medical school to save lives, not decode the side effects of Midnight Zombie X. There's no textbook entry for patient believes ceiling fan is the FBI. Every new arrival is an AI adventure. Some cases are mild, a little paranoia, a few hours of regret, maybe a stomach pump just for fun. Others are worse, rapid heartbeats, seizures, high fevers, even kidney failure. The only thing more unpredictable than the blends are the symptoms. Meanwhile, parents and caregivers descend on the hospital, panicked and confused. "He said it was incense," one mom protests. "It was legal," another insists, as if that's ever been a guarantee of safety. The hospital staff have heard it all. They gently explain that legality and safety are not even distant cousins. If anything, legal weed is the in-law nobody talks about at family gatherings. Hospital protocol shifts. Every shift now includes a crash course in emerging designer drugs. Whiteboards list the latest street names. Flyers go up in staff lounges. Tonight's hot blend. Watch for patients using Lava Panda or Chill Factory. One nurse starts a running joke. "If it glows in the dark, don't smoke it." Gallows humor is sometimes the only thing standing between the staff and burnout. News travels fast. After enough incidents, even the most laid-back ER doc starts to flinch at the phrase, "I just wanted to relax." Local governments begin to take notice, not because of the store shelves, but because the waiting rooms are full. Reports pile up. Synthetic cannabinoid toxicity becomes a new line on the admissions forms. Public health warnings are issued, but they sound a lot like, "We don't know what's in this stuff, but please stop bringing it to our hospital." By the time your night of adventure ends, you're wrapped in a hospital blanket, sipping ginger ale, and making a silent vow to stick to snacks and sleep next time. Your friends promise never to mention it again, but you know you're officially that story. In every friend group, every neighborhood, every ER, there's always at least one. Now, it's you. Welcome to the great hospital influx, the real, not-so-fun side of the legal high experiment. The only thing scarier than a packet of Nebula Chill is the look on the nurse's face when you hand it to her. Packets now come in Maui Mango and Mystic Blueberry, because if there's one thing that says safety, it's fruit flavors invented in a marketing meeting at 3 a.m. You stroll down the gas station aisle, passing the usual suspects: beef jerky, off-brand energy drinks, a suspiciously sticky lottery machine, and then there it is. The herbal blends shelf, newly restocked. Gone are the days of Black Mamba and Zombie Cloud. Now you're greeted by a cheerful display of fresh pineapple, cherry chill, and green apple bliss. It looks less like a drug section and more like the world's worst smoothie bar. If wellness influencers were in charge of synthetic cannabinoids, this is exactly what it would look like, minus the motivational quotes. Branding, it turns out, is a science and an art. When the feds started cracking down on the spooky names and neon dragons, the synthetic weed industry pivoted harder than a millennial at a career fair. Out with the demons and grim reapers, in with palm trees, pastel gradients, and names that sound like failed Jamba Juice specials. Each bag is now covered in images of dew-kissed fruit, ocean waves, or Sometimes just the word natural stamped across the front in eco-friendly green. It's almost enough to make you forget you're buying something that was mixed in a basement with questionable ventilation. The flavor names get more audacious every year. Watermelon Zen, Strawberry Dreamscape, Peach Serenity. You pick up a bag labeled Citrus Mindfulness and have to resist the urge to check if it includes a free yoga mat. The only thing missing is a little cartoon lemon meditating under a bonsai tree. The message is clear. This isn't just a product, it's a lifestyle. Forget the fact that the main active ingredient is a synthetic compound last seen in a pharmaceutical research paper from 1998. What matters is that it's infused with nature. The real magic, of course, is in the plausible deniability. The packets are covered in the usual warnings, not for human consumption, herbal incense only, but now with soothing fonts and leaf icons. They promise all natural botanicals, as if Damiana and marshmallow root are somehow going to soften the blow of whatever mystery chemical was sprayed on top. You can almost imagine the marketing team nodding sagely. What if, instead of dragons, we used blueberries? Corporate creativity doesn't stop at flavors. Now there's eco-friendly packaging and claims of sustainably sourced ingredients. As if somewhere out there, a hemp farmer is gently plucking the perfect marshmallow leaves for your next anxiety spiral. There are testimonials, tastes like a Hawaiian vacation, and even QR codes that link to websites with vaguely scientific charts and pictures of smiling people on paddle boards. It's a bold move, selling danger disguised as wellness. Maui mango might sound refreshing, but the only thing tropical about it is the way it makes you sweat. The irony is hard to miss. You're being marketed to like a health-conscious yogi, when really you're one puff away from seeing your own aura. The blend of corporate optimism and legal ambiguity is enough to make anyone nostalgic for the honest days of Demon Fire XL. But the tactic works. For every person scared off by scary names, there's someone who thinks, how bad can it be? It's basically fruit salad with extra steps. This is the genius of late capitalism branding. Turn anything into a lifestyle. Never mind the possible trip to the ER, you'll get there with blueberry bliss on your tongue and positive vibes on your mind. And when things go wrong, you can at least tell the nurse you were seeking enlightenment or hydration, or, at worst, just a serving of fruit. In the end, natural branding is just another layer of plausible deniability, one more excuse to try something wild, as long as it comes with a picture of a smiling pineapple. Because if there's one thing corporations know, it's that if you can't make it safe, at least make it sound delicious. The UK, Australia, the US, every country tries to ban it. Every lab in China invents a new variant. The only thing spreading faster than spice is the confusion. Let's zoom out. You're not just a lone night owl in a strip mall parking lot. You're part of a worldwide web of baffled users, bewildered lawmakers, and enterprising chemists who see borders as nothing but squiggly lines on a very profitable map. What started as a few shiny packets behind the counter in Topeka has become an international spectator sport, with nations everywhere scrambling to ban substances faster than the market can invent them. In the UK, Parliament calls an emergency session. Men in tailored suits and women in sensible shoes stand up to declare that synthetic cannabinoids are a threat to Her Majesty's youth and possibly the royal corgis. They pass sweeping bans, only to discover, mere days later, a new blend with a name like British Bulldog Chill on sale at corner stores. The tabloids erupt. Legal highs lurk in plain sight. Meanwhile, somewhere in Manchester, a guy named Dave is trying to decide if he's high or just jet-lagged. Australia isn't far behind. Down under, lawmakers pass what they call the world's toughest psychoactive ban, covering any substance that has a psychoactive effect unless it's already legal, like caffeine or that terrifyingly strong black licorice candy. But chemists are nothing if not determined. Next thing you know, Kangaroo Dreamtime hits the market, and local news stations go full crisis mode, warning parents that their kids could be tripping on newfangled incense before breakfast. And then there's the United States, where federal, state, and local governments try to regulate synthetic weed with the same effectiveness as a soggy napkin damming the Mississippi. Every region has its own banned substance list. Some towns outlaw specific molecules, others just go after anything with holographic packaging. The DEA releases regular bulletins, but by the time one blend is added to Schedule I, 3 more with slightly different chemical structures are already in circulation, each promising to be the safest yet, and definitely not for human consumption. At the heart of this global shuffle are the labs, mostly clustered in places where regulatory oversight is more of a polite suggestion than a legal requirement. Somewhere on the outskirts of Shanghai or in the industrial zones of Eastern Europe, a new batch is synthesized, packaged, and shipped to every continent except maybe Antarctica. Though, honestly, who's checking the penguins? With a click and a credit card, you can order herbal incense from halfway across the world, delivered to your doorstep faster than you can say, "Is this legal here?" Customs agents do their best, sifting through boxes with names like Magic Relax Blend and Sunshine Zen. Sometimes they catch a shipment. Sometimes they shrug and move on to the next box labeled Potpourri. It's an endless parade of plausible deniability and desperate paperwork. Meanwhile, people everywhere keep rolling the dice, hoping this batch is the one that actually delivers on the promise of a safe, legal high, instead of a ticket to the nearest emergency room. Confusion reigns supreme. Doctors in Paris swap stories with nurses in New York about patients hallucinating their way through hospital cafeterias. Policy experts in Tokyo email their counterparts in Berlin, asking for tips. No one has a solution, but everyone has an opinion. The media, for their part, run global specials with dramatic titles like The Synthetic Plague in Incense, The Silent Killer. Nobody ever actually defines what's in the stuff, but everyone agrees. It's bad, it's everywhere, and it's probably your kid's fault. So you, the consumer, are now an unwilling participant in the great international game of whack-a-mole, where the only prize is confusion and the only guarantee is that next week there'll be a new blend and a new ban on the shelf. Welcome to the global economy, where the only borders that matter are the ones drawn on shiny, fruit-flavored packets. For a brief, glorious window, someone made millions selling what was basically lab waste in shiny packaging. No one seems to know where the money went, but we're all pretty sure it wasn't the scientists. Let's zoom in on the supply chain, where late-stage capitalism meets the black market in a fog of plausible deniability. Picture a dusty office with cracked blinds and a motivational poster that says, "Think outside the bag." Inside, the real winners of the synthetic weed lottery, not the users, not the chemists, not even the brave souls at the gas station counter. No, the biggest smiles belong to the small group of middlemen and import-export entrepreneurs who realized you could turn industrial byproducts into a gold rush with nothing but a catchy name and a bulk order of foil packets. It's not exactly Ocean's 11. There's no glamorous heist, no slow-motion walk to triumphant music. More like a guy in a shipping warehouse who hasn't seen sunlight in 3 weeks, shoving boxes labeled herbal incense onto pallets while answering calls from all over the world. The business model is simple. Source bulk powder from a chemical supplier somewhere far away, mix it with dried leaves and twigs, spray until everything's sticky, then funnel it into tiny bags with names like Maui Magic or Happy Tiger. There are levels to the operation. At the top, a handful of wholesalers made fortunes, sometimes overnight. These weren't your local drug lords in gold chains and Ferraris. These were spreadsheet-wielding, coupon-clipping logistics nerds. They handled the tricky stuff, changing shipping addresses, setting up new LLCs, swapping out a banned molecule with the efficiency of a fast food menu update. For every ban, there was a new brand, a new blend, and a fresh line of credit. Beneath them, distributors, always one step ahead of the law, filling convenience stores, head shops, and, for a time, even gas stations with boxes of the latest legal high. Sales reps would travel up and down highways with trunks full of samples and a script that read, "It's not illegal, officer." Profits flowed in cash, money orders, sometimes even Bitcoin, because if you're already living in the gray area, why not go all the way digital? The real heroes, if you can call them that, were the marketing wizards. These are the people who realized that no one wants to buy generic lab blend number 53, but everyone will try Rainbow Monkey Dream. They designed the graphics, wrote the taglines, more chill, new formula, and made everything look like it was either a candy or an energy drink for aspiring superheroes. Their job was not to make it safe, just to make it sell. Meanwhile, local stores were caught in the middle, raking in profits while nervously eyeing the latest news bulletin. For a while, synthetic blends were the best-selling, highest-margin item after lotto tickets and cigarettes. Store owners would smile, count their cash, and tell you it's just incense with a wink. By the time authorities cracked down, the stock was gone, the profits banked, and a new shipment was on the way, this time called something even more ridiculous, like Peach Tranquility Maximum. So where did the money go? Overseas accounts, crypto wallets, the world's weirdest vacation funds. Most of it disappeared into the kind of vague corporate maze where parent company means good luck finding us. The chemists who started it all? They usually ended up with angry emails, unwanted media attention, and the grim realization that their names were now forever associated with ER visits and Reddit horror stories. And you, the consumer, were left holding the bag, literally. All you wanted was a chill night and maybe a story to tell. Instead, you bankrolled one of the strangest, shadiest economic bubbles of the century. The profits vanished, the products changed, but the legend of the synthetic weed economy lives on. Proof that in the right moment, even lab leftovers can become someone's golden ticket. By the early 2010s, the fun stops. Suddenly, herbal high means mysterious coma. The chemicals get nastier, the stories get darker, and nobody's laughing anymore. Let's rewind to those first warning signs. You still see the same shiny packets at the gas station, but the atmosphere's changed. It's less Wild West gold rush and more Russian roulette at the world's worst slumber party. Even the bravest among your friends, the ones who once wore "I survived Black Mamba" as a badge of honor, start to hesitate. The rumors are getting harder to ignore. Somebody knows somebody who ended up in the ICU after a single hit. Somebody else just blacked out for hours, only to wake up halfway across town, convinced they'd turned into a chair. In hospitals, staff are seeing things that even seasoned nurses thought they'd never have to Google. Young people with failing kidneys, middle-aged guys with seizures, hallucinations, fevers that won't break, and heart rates so high you'd think they were being chased by a bear made of espresso. The ER doctors have stopped laughing at the foil packets. Now, every time one comes through the door, they brace themselves for a case study that reads more like a horror story. The packets themselves are changing too. Where there was once a focus on branding, fruit flavors, happy lizards, yoga fonts, now there's a creeping sense of menace. Labels are even more evasive. Ultra potpourri, mega blend X, not for human life. You start to notice the language shift. Herbal is out, ultra concentrated, extreme, and maximum are in. The warning labels are bigger, bolder, and somehow less reassuring. Do not eat, smoke, snort, or think about. If only it were that easy. Chemically, things have gotten far from the original idea. Instead of slightly tweaked molecules, the labs are cranking out compounds no one's ever tested in humans, or possibly even hamsters. It's not just about dodging the law anymore. It's about cranking potency up to 11. Side effects be damned. Some blends are orders of magnitude stronger than anything that came before, with effects as unpredictable as a weather app in Mercury retrograde. One puff is all it takes to go from, "Hey, I feel weird," to "Call 911. Or worse, "I can see the sound my bones make." The media takes notice, and for once, the hysteria almost matches reality. Legal highs, deadly lows, the headlines scream. News specials feature grim-faced parents and doctors, teenagers who can barely remember the last few months. Even the morning talk shows, usually busy with dog parades and cupcake wars, start running segments on the dangers of synthetic weed. Your parents, who once thought you just had a cold, are now checking your breath for chemical notes of peach serenity. Meanwhile, you and your friends have a collective realization. This is no longer about getting away with something fun. This is about survival. No one wants to be that story, the one whispered at parties, the name on the GoFundMe, the cautionary tale everyone uses to scare their little cousins. For a growing number of people, that's exactly what's happened. It was supposed to be legal, they say. I thought I'd be safe. The phrase becomes an echo in every hospital corridor, every late-night phone call, every online trip report that ends, would not recommend. And just like that, the vibe shifts. The gas station gold rush is over. Nobody's bragging about which blend they tried. Everyone is looking for something safer, saner, and less likely to show up on a coroner's report. The era of herbal highs ends, not with a laugh, but with a shudder. If you've made it through, you count your luck and move on, vowing never to buy anything with a cartoon dragon ever again. Welcome to the toxic tipping point. When legal finally became lethal, the party was over, and all that was left was the cleanup. SWAT teams raid convenience stores. The evening news is 80% synthetic weed horror stories, and now you're not sure if your neighbor's tomato plant is legal. Let's fast forward to the moment when everything escalates from quietly sketchy to full-blown circus. There's a chill in the air, not the relaxing kind, but the "is my house next" kind. One morning, you roll by your favorite gas station for a breakfast burrito, only to find a dozen squad cars parked out front, lights flashing. Cops in tactical gear march in and out, arms full of glittery packets, and one very confused cashier who just wanted to pay off his student loans. The guy who usually sells you energy drinks and potpourri is being interviewed by someone who looks like they take their job way too seriously. You watch the scene unfold and think, is this about the lottery tickets again? But no, the news van makes it clear. Synthetic marijuana sting. The camera zooms in on the haul, hundreds of foil packets, each with names like Jungle Juice and Mystic Fire. Reporters gravely explain how neighborhoods are at risk, while in the background, someone tries to explain to his boss that he really was just selling incense. By sundown, the story is everywhere. Breaking news banners scream, "Legal high crisis." Local anchors switch between grave concern and wild speculation. Could your child be next? A doctor in a crisp suit gestures to a diagram of the human brain and says things like, "We just don't know what this stuff does, Susan. Parents triple lock their doors. Grandparents glare at tea bags just in case." Neighborhood Facebook groups fill with breathless warnings about strange-smelling smoke, weird plants in the community garden, and that one neighbor who always wears sunglasses, even when it's cloudy. If you're a store owner, it's chaos. Last month, you were making a tidy profit, moving Blueberry Cloud and Mega Zen alongside the usual beef jerky and windshield wipes. Now you're fielding questions from stern men in suits with clipboards. Some shops clear their shelves overnight, tossing out boxes and denying everything. Others try to get ahead of the game, posting handwritten signs. "We never sold spice, not even once." Try the station down the street, and just when you think it's calmed down, another wave hits. The state legislature holds a press conference. We're declaring war on synthetic cannabinoids. A senator introduces a bill with a name that sounds like a Marvel villain, the Designer Drug Elimination Act. More raids follow. Now it's not just the corner store, vape shops, head shops. Even the wellness center next to the smoothie bar gets a visit. Somewhere, a city council member holds up a glittery bag and declares, "Not in my town," as if the mere force of indignation will keep the next batch from landing on the shelves. Meanwhile, your group chats are on fire. Someone swears they saw the SWAT team at a 7-Eleven. Another claims their cousin's roommate's cat was interrogated. Nobody's sure what's still legal. Rumors swirl. "I heard tomato plants are next. They can be laced." You look at your neighbor's garden with suspicion, suddenly certain those heirlooms are hiding something sinister. The panic feeds on itself. News specials run live busts where nothing happens but a stern warning about chemical time bombs. You try to mind your own business, but there's an undercurrent of fear, part serious, part ridiculous. The air smells like disinfectant and uncertainty. In the end, the crackdown is everywhere and nowhere. The flashy brands disappear, only to be replaced by new ones a week later. The people who really wanted synthetic highs just find new channels, new names, new delivery systems. The war keeps moving, one convenience store at a time. And you, still just trying to buy a bag of chips, wonder if it's safer to stick to snacks, or maybe start growing your own tomatoes, just to be sure they're legal. Welcome to America's great synthetic panic, a spectacle of raids, rumors, and relentless news coverage. If you survive with your sense of humor intact, you're already ahead of the game. What's left after the smoke clears? A trail of ER bills, broken trust, and a generation with a suspicious relationship to anything labeled herbal. Everyone's got a story. Most of them end with, "I'll never touch that again." You look around and realize the landscape has changed. The flashy foil packets are gone from the gas station shelves, replaced by humble granola bars and bland protein shakes. The herbal blend display case is now mysteriously empty, as if someone swept through in the night, erasing all evidence of the legal high era. For a moment, you half expect to find a historical marker. On this spot, 1,000 bad decisions were made. Everywhere you go, there's an unspoken code. If someone says they don't mess with incense anymore, you know they aren't talking about candles. You recognize the distant look in someone's eyes when a news story about synthetic drugs comes on TV. They're remembering their own trip, the sweats, the shakes, the moment they realized legal didn't mean safe. The era's over, but the side effects linger. Medical bills that never quite got paid off. Friendships tested by weird nights and even weirder mornings, and trust issues with anything labeled all natural. Parents, teachers, and DARE officers feel vindicated, but also exhausted. All those assemblies, warnings, and awkward health class PowerPoints seem almost quaint now. You wonder if anyone will ever be able to teach a group of teenagers about herbal incense without someone snickering. There's a whole section of your generation that can spot the words proprietary blend and immediately hear the distant echo of their heart pounding in their ears. The stores themselves are in on the legacy. You walk in, see the locked cabinet where the packets used to be, and the clerk gives you a knowing glance. "We don't carry that stuff anymore," he says, as if reading your mind. The local ER staff remembers you too, not by name, but by the stories. Another one on Mystic Blueberry, they mutter in the break room, even years later. Hospitals upgraded their intake forms, just in case anyone is brave enough, or unlucky enough, to need them again. Even the law has changed. Local governments, burned by their brush with designer highs, pass strict regulations on anything remotely fun. City ordinances ban the sale of all smokable plant matter, which means somewhere a well-meaning grandma is technically breaking the law with her homemade chamomile tea. Cops are wary of anything that even looks like a shiny pouch, and you get flashbacks every time you walk past the potpourri section at the grocery store. But the real legacy is in the stories. Some are hilarious in hindsight. Tales of mistaking your cat for a federal agent, or the time you tried to order pizza using only interpretive dance. Others are sobering. Friends who had seizures, strangers who never came back from the deep end, families left with more questions than answers. The cautionary tales get handed down like urban legends. "Don't be like your Uncle Dave," someone warns. He thought K2 was a vitamin supplement. Spent 3 days convinced he was a refrigerator. And yet, there's something almost comforting in the shared regret. Misery, after all, loves company. At parties, reunions, and online threads, everyone has a synthetic weed story, and everyone agrees it was a phase best left behind. If nothing else, it's made you skeptical of miracle cures, quick fixes, and anything promising natural relaxation that comes in a holographic bag. So what's left? A collective wisdom born of trial and error, mostly error. A little extra caution, a little less faith in gas station innovations, and a deep, abiding respect for boring old snacks. You survived the era of herbal highs, and maybe, just maybe, you're the wiser for it. Or at least, you know better than to smoke anything with Comic Sans on the label. Welcome to the aftermath. A world a little less shiny, a little more careful, and a lot more grateful for the quiet, predictable safety of an ordinary day. It's 2025. Synthetic weed is out, kale smoothies are in, and you still can't walk past a gas station without a tiny, involuntary shiver. Was there a lesson? Or just another entry in the great encyclopedia of what were we thinking? You notice it everywhere, the subtle reminders that an era has truly ended. The snacks aisle is safe again, with nothing more exotic than blue raspberry Slurpees and organic granola bars. No more neon foil packets wedged between the cough, drops, and the beef jerky. No more nervous energy hovering over the herbal blends shelf. The most dangerous thing on sale now is a questionable hot dog that's been turning on its metal roller since the Obama administration. But if you listen closely, the story lingers. In conversations at work, in online forums, and at awkward high school reunions, tales of the legal weed years come up. Sometimes it's a cautionary tale, sometimes just a punchline. You hear things like, "Remember that summer when everyone was convinced Mystic Blueberry was safe?" Someone always laughs a little too hard, and someone else quietly checks the room for the nearest exit. Culturally, we've moved on, but not really. If anything, the memory of those synthetic highs has left its mark in subtle, weird ways. Natural became a buzzword with a permanent asterisk. Gas stations became less like general stores and more like exhibits in a cautionary history museum. And kale, of all things, became a symbol of clean living, as if the only way to erase the ghosts of K2 and spice was to eat enough fiber to scrub your soul. You, and everyone who lived through it, learned a few things the hard way. First, legal doesn't mean safe, and herbal doesn't mean harmless. Second, trust your instincts, especially when they're screaming no in the back of your mind as you roll up a leaf that smells like gasoline and crushed dreams. And third, never, ever trust marketing copy written in Comic Sans. Yet, there's something almost comforting about being part of a cautionary generation. When the next too good to be true trend rolls in, say, hypercaffeinated brain dust smoothies, or the return of smart drugs, you're just a little more wary, a little less eager to be first in line. You recognize the signs, wild claims, shiny packaging, warnings that say for research only. You might even catch yourself giving a heartfelt, unsolicited lecture to a younger co-worker who's eyeing the new relaxation gummies. They'll ignore you, of course, but it's the thought that counts. The lesson isn't really about the chemicals. It's about curiosity, hope, and the eternal human urge to shortcut boredom, pain, or just a dull Wednesday night. Synthetic weed was never really about getting high. It was about chasing something new, a loophole in the system, a brief shot at being part of an underground movement that nobody, not even the creators, fully understood. It was an era of wild experimentation, sometimes brilliant, often reckless, and always unforgettable. So you file the memories away, somewhere between that time you ate gas station sushi and the year of the cinnamon challenge. It's a chapter that shaped you, gave you stories, and maybe taught you, just a little, about consequences. History doesn't always come with a moral, but it always leaves a scar. And when you walk past that gas station in 2025, you smile to yourself, grateful for ordinary problems and the simple wisdom of just say no to anything in a holographic pouch. Because at the end of the day, the real lesson of the synthetic weed saga is this: if you're going to make mistakes, at least make them interesting. Just maybe, next time, stick to kale. Welcome to cultural memory. Sometimes embarrassing, always honest, and, with any luck, never repeated. You flip over your foil packet, hoping for reassurance. Instead, you see a list of herbs you've never heard of. A couple of things that sound suspiciously like garden mulch, and one secret proprietary blend. Somewhere in the fine print, may contain traces of common sense, but don't count on it. Let's take a closer look. The front of the packet promises you relaxation, euphoria, and possibly a visit from your spirit animal. The back is where the real comedy lives. Ingredients are listed in a font so tiny you suspect it's just a random selection of letters masquerading as Latin. Damiana leaf, blue lotus, marshmallow root, wild daga. You try to remember high school biology, but nothing in the curriculum prepared you for herbal blend with enhanced tranquility factor. As you scan the list, the alarm bells start ringing. You recognize Damiana from that one time you tried an herbal aphrodisiac at a music festival. It just made you sneeze. Blue lotus sounds romantic until you realize it grows mostly in ponds that host a robust population of frogs. Marshmallow root? You're 90% sure that's not what's in your s'mores, but you don't want to Google it. Wild daga sounds like a DJ from a midlife crisis rave. Then there's the proprietary blend, a phrase that should inspire confidence, but instead makes you think of whatever's left on the cutting room floor at a salad factory. The ingredient list could be anything. For all you know, it's old grass clippings, pine needles, and a light dusting of hope for the best. You briefly wonder if the secret sauce is just acetone and poor judgment. You look for a manufacturing date, but find only the reassuring phrase, hand-packed for freshness. Great. Nothing says quality control like mystery herbs mixed by hand in a basement. And let's not forget the potpourri angle. That's right, most packets insist, in bold letters, for aromatherapy only. You can't help but picture a very confused grandmother buying a bag of cosmic blaze to freshen up her living room. You know full well nobody's burning this in a ceramic dish to make their home smell nice, but the legal team has to keep up appearances. There's always that tiny hope you'll be the one to finally crack the code. Maybe this time it'll just smell like lavender and regret. Some brands get creative. Mystic Mango promises a blend of rare botanicals harvested under a full moon. You picture a group of elves hand-picking blue lotus petals, only to realize it's just bulk ordered from the cheapest supplier available. Others double down on the science. Enhanced with JWH-18 for maximum effect. No further explanation given. If you don't know what that is, you're not alone. Neither does your doctor, your parents, or probably the guy who packed the bag. For every questionable plant, there's a list of warnings. Do not smoke, snort, eat, lick, or otherwise consume this product. You realize you're holding the only aromatherapy product that can't legally be used for aroma or therapy. And yet, here you are, weighing your options, wondering if anyone has ever actually followed the instructions and used this stuff as potpourri. The truth? The real recipe was always the same. Take some crunchy leaves, spray them with something a chemist invented on a dare, add a pinch of plausible deniability, and package it like it's a cross between a lottery ticket and a bag of Skittles. If you get a pleasant experience, congratulations. If not, well, at least you learned something new about the resilience of your own nervous system. In the end, the infamous ingredient list isn't just a warning, it's a story, a punchline, and a dare. You know you shouldn't trust it. You know you shouldn't try it. But sometimes curiosity wins. Welcome to the wild world of mystery herbs and secret sauce, where the only thing guaranteed is an experience you won't soon forget. Everyone knows someone whose neighbor's brother's ex got stuck in a loop after one hit, or saw the face of Abraham Lincoln in a lampshade for 8 hours. The more dramatic the story, the more you want to believe it. Welcome to the folklore of bad ideas, where the tales get weirder every year. It starts at a party, maybe in someone's basement, or a half-furnished apartment with thrift store couches. The synthetic weed makes an appearance, and so do the stories. Someone says, "Okay, but did you hear about that guy who smoked half a packet and thought he was a sandwich for 3 days?" Someone else nods knowingly and adds, "That's nothing. My cousin's friend blacked out and woke up in a different state, geographically and emotionally." You sit back and listen, because the tales are always better than whatever movie is playing in the background. There's the legend of the person who tried Dragon Claw Extreme and ended up speaking fluent French, despite failing it twice in high school. Or the girl who was convinced she was being followed by a giant invisible turtle for a week. Every group has its classics. The one about the guy who tried to microwave his shoes because they were cold, or the friend who became obsessed with counting all the tiles in the bathroom, certain it held the secret to the universe. Some stories are cautionary, others are just performance art. "You know why I never touch that stuff?" someone asks, lowering their voice. "My best friend's roommate's boyfriend smoked it and forgot how to swallow for 6 hours." There's always a hint of pride in the telling, as if surviving a synthetic high gone wrong is a badge of honor, a rite of passage for the adventurous and the chronically bored. It doesn't take long before the stories spread beyond your friend group. Suddenly, your mom's friend at work is warning her about the thing her nephew saw on the news, a tale that started as a Reddit post and now has 3 extra plot twists and a surprise cameo by the fire department. Teachers, too, trade tales in the staff lounge. "Did you hear about the kid who tried spice in the parking lot and thought the principal was an alien? He spent an hour trying to decode her secret language with a protractor." The wildest myths always come from the friend who knows someone in the ER. According to them, every hospital shift includes a new legend. The person who believed their hands were made of spaghetti. The kid who tried to eat an entire box of crayons. The grown adult who tried to phase through a wall because gravity is just a suggestion, man. Sometimes these stories are even true, just filtered through a few rounds of embellishment and enough secondhand retellings to qualify for urban legend status. As the years go on, the stories get more elaborate, details change, the packet gets a new name, the symptoms become more bizarre, the outcome more dramatic. He saw the end of the universe and came back with a message, but nobody could understand it because he only spoke in bird noises. It's a living oral tradition, a tapestry woven from fear, fascination, and just enough truth to keep you second-guessing every shiny foil pouch. But the best part, the urban legends have a purpose. They're cautionary tales disguised as entertainment, the modern version of "don't eat the glowing berries" or "beware the haunted woods." Only now, the moral is, don't smoke the packet with a cartoon unicorn doing karate on it. Your brain will thank you, so you listen, you laugh, and you add your own chapter. Maybe your story isn't as wild as seeing Abraham Lincoln in the lampshade, but it's yours, and someday it'll become someone else's friend of a cousin legend. That's the beauty of spice mythology. The stories are never quite finished, and the next weird tale is always just one decision away. Someone, somewhere, always thinks they can do it better. Cut to a college apartment kitchen where you and your friends try to upgrade K2 with whatever's under the sink. Pro tip: when your roommate starts Googling how to evaporate acetone safely, it's time to call it a night. It always starts with innocent curiosity and a bit of overconfidence. You and your crew gather in the world's most questionable kitchen, a place where the fridge hums ominously and the microwave blinks 12 o'clock for eternity. Someone spreads out a couple of foil packets and suggests, What if we made it stronger? Another person, usually the one who once almost passed organic chemistry, claims, I read online it's easy. Suddenly, you're playing Breaking Bad with half a bottle of nail polish remover and a suspicious bag of herbal incense. There's a half-hearted attempt to follow instructions, most of which are copy-pasted from forums that start with not medical advice. You see phrases like extract with isopropyl alcohol and heat gently, but no one seems clear on the actual steps. Someone's Googling, are fumes supposed to look green? While another is reading out loud, dude, just mix it with orange juice and let it sit overnight. Before you know it, the kitchen is a chemistry set gone rogue. There are bowls, strainers, a funnel made from a cut-up soda bottle, and the lingering scent of citrus blast, fighting for dominance with acetone and panic. Your roommate is wearing swimming goggles for safety, and the cat, wisely, has left the room. You open a window and hope the landlord doesn't walk by, because it already looks like a crime scene from a cooking show gone wrong. It's all fun and games until the side effects kick in. The mixture, if you can even call it that, goes from should be fine to definitely not fine within minutes. Someone starts coughing, someone else gets lightheaded, and a third friend starts theorizing about the chemical structure of regret. You're pretty sure you've just invented the world's first blend of synthetic weed and kitchen cleaner. Here's the secret no one on the forums tells you. There's a reason chemists get paid, and it's not just for their stylish lab coats. Making synthetic cannabinoids is hard, and making them safe is basically impossible without the right equipment, knowledge, or even a passing interest in not accidentally poisoning yourself. But in the moment, none of that matters. You're convinced you're 2 steps away from a new legal high, and maybe even a side hustle, right up until the smoke alarm goes off and everyone panics. After an hour of chaos, you end up with something sticky, weirdly colored, and faintly reminiscent of melted crayons. You roll it up anyway, because at this point, what's one more bad decision? The result is unforgettable. The taste is a blend of cleaning product, charred leaves, and existential dread. The high, if you can call it that, it's mostly anxiety, nausea, and the vague feeling that you've just disappointed every science teacher you ever had. The aftermath. Someone's passed out on the futon, someone's trying to apologize to the toaster for getting it involved, and you're left scrubbing the counters with dish soap, promising yourself you'll never try DIY chemistry again. Spoiler, you probably will, at least until the next round of curiosity strikes. In the end, the only thing you really made was a mess and a memory. The DIY disaster joins the ever-growing list of what were we thinking? Adventures. You didn't invent the next big thing in legal highs, but you did discover the power of teamwork, the danger of household chemicals, and the wisdom of calling it a night before someone suggests using the blender. So, if you ever find yourself tempted to improve on a packet of synthetic weed, just remember, sometimes the only thing standing between you and a trip to the ER is a Google search for how to get acetone out of curtains. Don't be a pioneer, just go to bed. Between MySpace profiles, questionable diets, and the collective delusion that trucker hats were stylish, it's no wonder people gave spice a shot. If you survived Y2K and reality TV, you figured you could survive anything. History, as always, disagrees. Let's rewind to the early 2000s, when logic was optional and optimism came in packets, or at least questionable plastic bottles of blue liquid. You lived in a world where hot topic was a personality trait, and superfoods meant whatever someone sprinkled on a salad in a chain restaurant. The nightly news alternated between shark attacks and updates on Paris Hilton's dog. If you made it through all that, why not roll the dice on a legal high that promised spiritual enlightenment and maybe a talking ferret or two? This was the era of trust but verify, except nobody verified anything. You bought energy drinks with warning labels longer than your high school essays. You chugged fat-burning pills, certain that the future was now. Someone convinced you that rubber wristbands cured stress. You believed in Atkins, low-fat, low-carb, the South Beach diet, and whatever Gwyneth Paltrow was selling that week. Compared to all that, a little packet of herbal incense seemed almost wholesome. Part of it was the marketing. Natural was the magic word. If it had leaves, roots, or flowers on the packet, it must be basically a salad, right? Add a yoga pose and a dragon logo, and you had instant credibility. After all, this was the era when people paid extra for bottled water labeled Artisan Spring and told everyone that acai berries were going to save the world. You just lived through an age where airborne was a vitamin and goji was a personality trait. But the trust went deeper. The early 2000s were weirdly optimistic about the future of chemistry. Technology was everywhere. iPods, flip phones, the rise of Google. You watched The Matrix, you trusted science, and you genuinely believed that anything legal and new must have been tested by someone somewhere. It was easy to imagine a boardroom full of lab coats approving these products for sale, rather than one overworked import-export guy with a dial-up connection and a dream. There was also the great legal loophole effect. If you could buy it at the gas station, it must be fine. The same place that sold you Gatorade, hot dogs, and energy supplements surely wouldn't risk your health with a little baggie of suspiciously sparkly oregano. The clerk was mostly unfazed, too. He'd seen worse. He barely looked up from his crossword as you grabbed a 2-for-1 deal on Potpourri Supreme. And let's not forget, you were conditioned for risk. After all, you survived dial-up internet, Windows ME, and several summers of reality TV experiments like Survivor and Fear Factor. You watched people eat bugs for money. You watched celebrities try to dance. You figured if Jessica Simpson could survive eating chicken of the sea, you could handle a puff or two of midnight chill. If it's legal, how bad can it really be? The irony, of course, is that all this misplaced trust was part of the lesson. The early 2000s gave you permission to try, to experiment, to believe in the wild promises of the next new thing. But eventually, reality arrived, wearing a hospital gown and holding a bill for $800. The truth hit. If it sounds too good to be true and comes in a shiny pouch next to the Slim Jims, maybe it is. So, you look back and wonder, why did anyone trust this? Because the early 2000s broke your brain in just the right way to make it possible. The good news? You survived. The bad news? History will never let you forget it. Welcome to the club. So, tonight, as you drift off in a bed that's not made of shredded plastic or mystery herbs, maybe take a quiet moment to appreciate just how far you've come. You survived the era when legal meant untested, herbal meant definitely not for human consumption, and your wildest ideas came in neon foil next to beef jerky at the gas station. That's resilience, or at least a good sense of humor. Because the saga of Spice and K2 isn't just a cautionary tale. It's proof that people, given a little freedom and a lot of confusion, will always find new ways to chase a high, dodge the rules, and then look back years later and wonder, what were we thinking? It's a story of innovation, disaster, regret, and a little bit of hope stitched together by college kids, midnight adventurers, and everyone who ever trusted a packet with a cartoon dragon on it. Be grateful for the lessons, even the weird ones. Grateful for modern comfort, actual regulations, and a body that doesn't glow in the dark. The people who lived through the synthetic weed years may have lost a few brain cells, but they gained a story, one best told from a safe, warm place with the lights low and the fan humming. So, as you tuck yourself in tonight, maybe whisper a thank you to your immune system, your common sense, and the generation that figured out, sometimes the hard way, that not all herbal highs are created equal. Sleep well, knowing history is full of misadventures, but at least you're smart enough to learn from them, or at least laugh about them. Good night, and may your dreams be free of neon dragons, regretful decisions, and anything labeled spice.